The smell of old marble mixed with the expensive perfume of Manhattan's high society hung in the great hall of the Met. The golden lighting and string music made the main staircase look like a theater stage. For me, Helena, this was the culmination of 10 years studying the truth behind art. For my sister, Patricia, it was just the next party. Our lives were visual proof that, in the art world, money and connections beat authenticity. I had spent the last few months in dusty archives, validating the provenance of obscure pieces. Patricia, on the other hand, was at the center of attention, surrounded by curators and collectors, all eager to see the centerpiece of her new exhibition, The Lost Study, a painting supposedly from the 17th century that she had discovered and which had earned her the prestigious Carlyle Prize. My parents, Jorge and Legia, were there, of course. They were the main sponsors of the museum's new wing, ensuring Patricia's name was on every program. They didn't come to talk to me. They came to supervise their investment. "Helena, dear, you're too close to that tapestry." "Don't touch it," my mother said, casting a disapproving look at my simple black dress. "Patricia has a flair for presentation. Yours is a little too academic, don't you think?" I shrank internally. The same as always. Ever since Patricia decided she would be a curator after marrying into collector money, I became the invisible daughter. Didn't matter that my PhD was on the authenticity of Dutch pigments. To them, Patricia was the visionary. I was the footnote specialist. The value of the Lost Study is based on the attribution Patricia gave it, Mom. An attribution that lacks solid historical evidence, I said, my voice tense. "Oh, Helena, always the evidence. Your father and I only invest where there is a return. Tricia is charismatic. You are pedantic." My mother smiled, a social smile, and went back to Patricia, who was already arm in arm with my father. Patricia's project, the so-called Lost Study, was objectively dubious. I knew the canvas was, at best, a student copy. But the collecting world wasn't about truth, it was about the sellable narrative. And the jury was composed of friends who owed favors to my father, the great sponsor. I knew Patricia would win the prize. I walked to the back of the room where the darkness offered refuge. That was when my father caught up with me. Not with a compliment, but with a cold threat. "Patricia wins this prize tonight, Helena, you will behave. No public questioning of the canvas. Do you understand?" "I understand, Dad." "If Patricia wins, the art world loses its credibility," I said, the calm in my voice irritating him more than a scream. "You are so jealous. That's why we don't support you. You don't belong on this stage, Helena. Your place is in the dusty archives." He turned away, leaving me alone with the bitterness. Patricia was about to receive the award. I had come for the stage. And if I couldn't have the victory, I would have the truth. I pulled an aged linen envelope from the inner pocket of my blazer, one I had kept for 10 years. The envelope contained something that wasn't about pigments, but about the rotten secret behind our family's success. I stepped back into the cold air of a storage room at the back of the museum, away from the flashes, feeling the aged parchment inside the envelope. The bitterness of my father's words, "You don't belong on this stage," was the fuel I needed. I was no longer fighting for an award. I was fighting for historical integrity against the financial corruption my father had injected into the art world. I had found the diary in the attic of my grandmother's country house years ago, a find that fascinated me at the time. It was the diary of Bartholomew, a minor apprentice to a Dutch master of the 17th century. I kept it a secret, knowing it held secrets. That night I opened it. Bartholomew's small, faded handwriting was clear. He detailed the process of copying and aging canvases rejected by his master to sell in smaller markets. In one specific entry, he described a square canvas with 2 men in dark robes that he had copied from a sketch. The name of the canvas? The Lost Study. Patricia had bought the canvas and attributed it to the master, tripling its value. This fraud was the centerpiece of the exhibition that was about to win her an award. My father wasn't just funding her career, He was rubber-stamping historical fraud. I needed final confirmation that my father knew. Called the only colleague I trusted in New York, Liam, an investigative journalist covering the art market. Liam called me back in 10 minutes. He not only confirmed my suspicion but discovered something even graver. The original piece that inspired Bartholomew's copy belonged to a collector who tried to sell it, but my father had bought all the provenance documents for millions, burying them to maintain the authenticity of Patricia's copy. It was a planned crime. I understood everything. My father wasn't just protecting Patricia. He was building a legacy of lies with stolen money, and I, the art historian specializing in provenance, was the only one who could unmask him. I returned to the Great Hall. The gala was in its final stretch. I wasn't going to fight for art history anymore. I was going to fight for my future. The award gala was in the heart of the Met, a scene of ostentation. I sat in the last row, wearing a simple black blazer. My parents and Patricia sat in the front, smiling and waving. The result was already decided. The jury president, one of the museum curators and a longtime friend of my father, took the microphone. The winner of the prestigious Carlyle Prize for Curatorial Innovation and the mind behind our incredible Dutch Masters exhibition is the visionary Patricia Sampaio. The room exploded in applause. Patricia stood up, hugging my parents exuberantly. They looked radiant. My mother turned to the back row and cast me a look of triumph and disdain. I did nothing. I just smiled. Patricia went up to the stage, tripping slightly on her designer dress. Her speech was full of clichés about the Dutch Revolution and vision. My parents were visibly proud, filming with their phones. When Patricia was about to thank the main sponsor, which was my father, I made my move. I had planned every step with Liam, the journalist. I stood up and walked calmly down the center aisle, using the silence of Patricia's speech. "Excuse me," I said in a clear voice. It wasn't loud, but it cut through the air like breaking glass. Everyone turned. Patricia stopped speaking on stage, pale and confused. My father froze in his chair, turning slowly. "Helena! Get out of here," he hissed, but I was already at the steps of the stage. "I just wanted to make a small addendum to the curator's speech," I said into the podium microphone, ignoring my father. "Patricia deserves congratulations for the centerpiece, of course. But there is something about the authenticity that needs to be addressed." Patricia was red, trying to push me away from the microphone. My father was coming toward me, but it was too late. I had the microphone and the attention of the entire art world. My research, based on an authentic 17th century manuscript, proves that the canvas known as the Lost Study. I looked at Patricia. Is not a work by the master. It is a copy by an apprentice, Bartholomew, which my father and Patricia paid to cover up. I held up Bartholomew's diary for the cameras. And the proof of this, the forger's diary, is right here. I barely finished the sentence. My father rushed onto the stage, his CEO mask crumbling, revealing a desperate man. He tried to snatch the diary from my hand, but Liam and a photographer who was ready stepped in. Chaos ensued. Curators were shouting. Patricia was crying and screaming. "You have always been jealous!" I stepped down from the stage, my work done. Liam already had the photo of the diary and the testimony of the shocked jurors. In the days that followed, the art world watched the Sampaio family collapse. News of the fraud, the sponsorship scandal, and the forgery in the Met centerpiece leaked to the entire press. The museum had to close the exhibition. Patricia's career was torn to shreds, and my father was investigated for money laundering and fraud. I didn't win the Carlyle Prize. The award went to another curator. But I didn't care. I had won something much greater. My grandmother's will was revalidated, and due to the proven fraud clause, the family inheritance was reverted to me. I used the money to found my own authenticity center in New York. The name? Provenance. I dedicated my life to fighting corruption in the art market. I never spoke to Patricia again, who became a social pariah. My parents tried to call me, begging me to deny the fraud story, but I never answered. I no longer needed validation. I sat in my new office in downtown Manhattan with Bartholomew's diary in a glass case. I had my foundation, my truth, and finally my place. The invisible daughter had become the guardian of authenticity.